Welcome. I'm Deborah Meyer, CEO and co-founder of Moving Traditions. Thank you for joining me today for our first virtual benefit as we celebrate my dear friend, Renee Saki, and as we dedicate ourselves to emboldening Jewish youth to connect, challenge, and change. Moving Traditions emboldens Jewish preteens and teens to connect to themselves, to Jewish friends, to Jewish teachings, and to Jewish community. We embolden Jewish preteens and teens to challenge messages that foster hate and restrict gender roles. And we embolden them to change our society by developing compassion and working together for justice. Since we opened our doors in 2005, Moving Traditions has pioneered work on building wellness and mental health for more than 28,000 Jewish preteens and teens, centering Jewish education on the whole teen. Today, the field of Jewish youth engagement has joined us in embracing teen wellness as a key component of Jewish education. Moving Traditions works at the intersection of wellness and social justice, with resilience at the heart, where the two overlap. Working for social justice is a key Jewish value, and when we work for change, we reduce stress and build individual resilience, while also building communities and a society that is better and stronger. What is good for the individual is therefore good for the community and the wider world. So today, you'll hear from a chorus of voices in our short program about Renee and about Moving Traditions' impact on preteens, teens, and parents, and the clergy and Jewish educators who we train to lead our programs. As a result of Renee Saki's leadership, as a result of your support, and as a result of Moving Traditions' work, and despite the pandemic and serious challenges to their mental health, Jewish youth are thriving. With your support over the last year during the pandemic, Moving Traditions is now reaching more Jewish youth in a greater number of communities across the country. With your support, we will continue to embolden Jewish youth to come together in Jewish community to connect, challenge, and change, so that Jewish youth thrive as individuals and so that they work together for a better future. And now, I'm delighted to introduce my partner in leading Moving Traditions, our board chair, Rabbi Darcy Crystal.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm so delighted you are able to join us as we celebrate the incredible work that Moving Traditions does to empower and shape Jewish youth, and as we honor one of our great heroes, Renee Saki. I stepped into my role as Moving Traditions board chair on June 1st in the middle of the pandemic. While it has been a time of stress for Jewish youth and for the Jewish community, I have been honored to help steer the organization through this year, and I have been so inspired by the way in which Moving Traditions has evolved and supported youth during this time of intense isolation and anxiety. Our teen groups have been a place of connection and refuge, allowing teens to have conversations of meaning and to strengthen the relationships among their peers and leaders. I can tell you, both as board chair and parent of 2 teen group participants, that the impact of our work has grown this year, and that Moving Traditions has been a gift to my son and daughter and to the thousands of youth who have been touched by our programs. At the beginning of each of our Rosh Chodesh gatherings, our teens participate in an opening ritual which enables them to transition from everyday time and space into the sacred time and space that the group shares together. By lighting a candle and reciting a blessing, we have the power to transform the mundane into the holy. We create a time that is separate, that is outside the realm of the regular, that is dedicated exclusively to the sacred conversations and relationships that we create in our groups. And we have learned over the past year that this ritual holds the same power even when each participant is in a separate Zoom box and not in the same room together. So this evening, I would like to invite you to join me as we transform this next 45 minutes into something wholly different and special. Yehi ratzon sheyitchadesh aleinu chodesh iyar. May this be a month of blessings, blessings of goodness, blessings of joy, peace, and kindness, friendship, and love. And may this be a night of many blessings too. Amen.
So I always start every Shevet gathering with just a highlight from the past week, because I like to start with just reminding us that ultimately we're here together as people to share our experiences and our stories, and having them start to think about something from their own life.
The Rosh Chodesh group, once we start discussion, is a sacred place for us to really feel safe when we're expressing our ideas to each other, or if we're discussing something that we don't know if we'd be comfortable with other people knowing. And it's that idea of us being kind of in a bubble for that 45 minutes or an hour where we all show each other empathy.
You can, talk about your needs and talk about things that, you wouldn't talk about with other people, and everyone can help you out, and you can help them out, of course, if you've had the same experiences with them.
Tselem comes from the phrase B'Tselem Elohim, which means in God's image, which is referencing this Jewish value and this text that all humans are made in the image of God. There's been so much historic harm and exclusion of LGBTQ people in Jewish life, of trans people in Jewish life, and so to say to this group of trans teens, you are made in the image of God, is life-saving.
I think it 100%. This bond relies on the fact that we all identify as women, and through our experience going through life as a woman as opposed to going through life as just a teen, is that idea of being a female teen that really bonds us.
There's a reason that folks are choosing to be in Tselem, which has maybe more gender expressions and gender identities present, or they're just not sure which space they fit into, or maybe they don't fit into either a girl's space or a boy's space.
We do talk about gender identity in terms of expectations, these sort of stereotypes or assumptions we have about what boys do and what girls do and what transgender means. It hurts everyone.
We watched videos on advertisements that people had shown about masculinity, and we had to talk about it that's a little ridiculous and things need to change about whatever people put up, and I think we all got a very good lesson out of that one.
Even though we come from different backgrounds and different places, we all have really, really similar values when it comes to wanting to learn more about Judaism and how that connects to our own personal communities and lives.
For them to say, oh, I learned a Jewish thought about that issue, sticks with them. It makes it more personal. It makes Judaism not just exist at the synagogue or just at their bar mitzvah, but it can exist in their life and how they think about their life.
I've seen Jewish life in the last 10, 15 years really exploding with new options and new groups and new possibilities for young people to see themselves represented in Jewish life.
Moving Traditions is willing to experiment and try new things and see if they work. So they try out games, they try out activities, they try out things, and they get feedback and improve it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that makes Moving Traditions work.
Rosh Chodesh has impacted the way that I think about my own Jewish identity. So beyond Sunday school, coming back to this idea of a Jewish community, because that has been what's really helped me get through high school, helped me stay connected with the temple, and helped me stay within this whole community.
Hi, I'm Alicia Pedowitz, California Director of Moving Traditions and a proud Rosh Chodesh group leader. As you just heard from some of the teens in our teen groups and some of the group leaders, our teen group experience helps teens build sacred time, sacred space, and sacred relationship to navigate adolescence and make meaning out of what is happening for them in their lives in this moment using Jewish wisdom. This past year, helping them stay connected and make meaning through the experiences of the pandemic was of critical importance in our teen groups. I'd like to give you a taste of one of the ways that we did that using an activity from a session we wrote in response to COVID called Prolonged Stress, Oh Yes, Achieving Homeostasis While Staying at Home. So as we begin to move out of the stay-at-home phase of the pandemic and into what many people are calling the new normal of what lies ahead, I'm sure most of us are thinking about all of the things we are excited to leave behind us from this past year. And yet, many of us have also found new ways of finding joy for ourselves, of helping keep ourselves going through the pandemic that we may want to bring with us into the new normal. So what I'd like to ask you now is to do something that we ask teams across the country in our groups to do this year. And that is to take a second and ask yourself, what is one thing that brought me joy this year that I might not have done otherwise? Or one thing that kept me going through the pandemic, a practice or a lesson that I want to bring with me into the new normal? And I'd like you to type your answer into the chat as a 1 or 2 word response. And the question is at the bottom of the screen repeated. And as you're typing your responses, I'd like to call up the image of the Havdalah ceremony. Havdalah is the ceremony that helps us mark both the separation and the transition Saturday evening from the distinct and different period of Shabbat into the mundane of our normal day-to-day week. And in this ceremony, even as we move forward into the new week, into the possibility of what lies ahead of us, we're also trying to call back and bring with us some of what was distinct about that day. We drink wine to bring some of the joy with us. We smell spices to bring some of the sweetness, to fill ourselves with it into the week. We feel the warmth of the Havdalah candle to fill ourselves with the warm feelings that we felt. And while it might not be exactly the same as what we felt during the pandemic, I would like to ask you if there's anything that we can learn from this year that we can bring with us into how we create our hopeful new beginning as we begin our new normal. Let's take a minute to look at some of your answers. Some of us experience quiet time, the practice of taking walks in nature to get ourselves outdoors, friendships and books that we cultivated, walking to clear my head, special family dinners and having real time with family set aside. Many beautiful practices that kept us going through what was undoubtedly a challenging year. I'd like you to look at what's on the screen, take a minute, breathe in some of that, and bring those things with you as we begin to create our new normal. And just like we do in our teen groups, our Moving Traditions B'nai Mitzvah Family Education Program helps young people and their parents make meaning out of their journey into adolescence. As we next celebrate the impact of the Moving Traditions B'nai Mitzvah Family Education Program on preteens and their families, we also honor the memory of Carol Lowenstein. To date, the Carol Lowenstein Moving Traditions B'nai Mitzvah Training Institute, established by Carol's husband Michael and their family and friends, has trained nearly 350 clergy and educators to implement the Moving Traditions B'nai Mitzvah program at 120 synagogues and other organizations across the country.
For as long as I've been doing this, I would say that I have been looking for a program or looking for a way to combine the wisdom of Jewish tradition with kind of where teens are in their lives at ages 12 and 13.
The Moving Traditions B'nai Mitzvah Family Education Program is for families with 6th and 7th graders that uses B'nai Mitzvah as a lens, but says that it's about much more than the ritual moment. It's about the process of becoming a teenager and the parent of a teenager. Parents and preteens are learning how to relate to one another in this new way, and that starts long before anyone has ever set foot on a bima and ends long after the Torah has been chanted.
It's a program that addresses the social emotional needs of teenagers and looks to their parents and looks to their families and meets them where they are at this moment in time.
It's been pretty helpful. They've been asking us, like, what are you nervous about and what are you excited about?
We obviously, discuss many things with our children, but would I sit down and be like, oh, you're going to be 13, do you think you're an adult? But it's, it's nice to have that kind of guidance.
We talk about communication and how people communicate with each other. We talk about friendships. There's a lot of sort of breaking the ice and letting the kids feel comfortable in the space.
Rabbi Brown had us get these apples, and he said, try and stack them. Barely anyone could. He said, your bar or bat mitzvah will not be like this. It was kind of a relief because I thought it was going to be really hard on us. And when he said it wasn't, I was like, thank God.
We start with the entire family together, and we give them the foundations of the topic for the day. And then we send parents off with other parents, and we send preteens off with the other preteens to speak in that kind of community. And at the end, we bring them back together so that parents and preteens can share with one another, and that's the magic.
One example of an activity that we used recently was the parent-teen-child activity. And this was an activity where the teens and their parents were asked to type in words to describe a child, words that describe a teen, and words that describe an adult. And then a word cloud came up with all of the words that they used to describe these different phases in our lives.
For like teenager, it was like moody, and it was like in bold,
dark,
huge
in
letters or something.
This and that, but,
and then, I guess because of that, it forced us to be like, but wait a second.
But wait,
like,
there's
it's not
another
all
side,
like
right?
The Lozier family saw some of the negativity around teenagers, and because this was their third child and they've been through this before, they were able to let other families know, it's really not so bad. Being the parent of a teen can be okay. You can survive this.
It's about community and about how everybody supports the bar bat mitzvah. And I think that it really is a good, like Abby said, it was a relief, because it takes the pressure and it doesn't make this into a very, pressure-filled situation, that she can enjoy it.
This is a transformational moment for kids and for families, and I think we're making families more aware of that by using the Moving Traditions program.
We are helping parents and teens have conversations that they wouldn't otherwise get to have. We provide a structured environment for them to have real, meaningful, and authentic conversations about what is important to them at this moment.
Congratulations to Moving Traditions on the great work that you're doing and the impact on the lives of Jewish teens. The work is so important. I wish I knew about it when I was a teen. I'd be like 20% better than I am now. Congratulations.
In a few minutes, we're going to celebrate Renee Zaki. But first, it is with great excitement that I introduce the Moving Traditions Kol Kolenu Teen Feminist Fellowship. This year, the Moving Traditions Fellowship grew to 50 young Jewish feminists who together are raising their voices and their skills to create tangible change in their communities. Renee Zaki and others paved the way for this next generation of young feminist Jewish leaders. I know that you will be as inspired as I am by their activism and commitment to social change.
Growing up in the 21st century, there's a lot of, social movements that have happened in the past few years. And from a very young age, I kind of realized I wanted to be a part of this movement. So I'd written papers on it throughout middle school and early throughout high school, but there were never really any groups in my area that I could join to express that. And then kind of same with kind of my Jewish identity. So when these two things combined, it was kind of like the best of both worlds.
I was actually very fortunate enough to be able to be one of the first participants of Kol Kolenu. It was just 10 of us from the New York area, and now there's about 50 participants from all over the country.
The reason I want to invest my time in these fellows doing this incredible work with Kol Kolenu is because I believe they can make a difference. I think that the Kol Kolenu program develops those leadership skills, how that is rooted in Jewish values, and if we just look at the idea of tikkun olam and of making a difference. And I think when we think about feminism, which is part of the Kol Kolenu program, social justice, that's all a part of making that difference.
We all kind of have similar ideals and similar ideologies, and we really just kind of discuss what's going on in the world through a Jewish lens and kind of deepen our Jewish identities through that, while also working towards some sort of social change.
From the first meeting, you get to start thinking about what you want to learn about. And then that topic that you want to learn about, eventually you're going to teach the rest of the fellowship about it. After you finish the teachings, you then get to thinking about a bigger social action project that you're going to take outside of the Kolkolenu community.
So we actually ended up deciding on creating an educational curriculum about abortion and kind of the different aspects to it, mostly because it's such a nuanced subject. The narrative is kind of dominated by the Christian view in everyday life, and a lot of people don't realize that the Jewish view of abortion is quite different. So the Jewish view really puts the mother's life at the forefront and kind of really values her choice in the matter. So we are looking to implement it into youth groups at our local congregations and kind of give them the tools to teach their fellow peers going forward.
So my social action project is an inclusive sex education curriculum that will cover gender identity, understanding what that whole topic means, as well as talking about our own personal boundaries and how we can communicate that to others, and then how that communication can be violated and turn into an unhealthy relationship. And my mentor is a sex educator. That's what she does for a living. And she also writes curriculum for Moving Traditions.
They've turned it into a youth-led project where they can come in, Maya and her partner, and be the facilitators for peers, and that's part of the power of the program.
It's made by teens, run by teens, for teens, because sometimes it can be scary to talk about such hard topics with adults.
Regardless of what Maya studies, what she developed as being a part of this program is something that a lot of young people don't develop until later on in life. So when she goes into her next steps, but even beyond in life, taking leadership positions, having her opinion heard, developing a product and a project that she's proud of is not foreign to her. It's not something that's as scary.
Kolkolenu has definitely given me the tools to be an effective activist. We've talked about how you can always say so much, but it kind of honestly depends on what you do with that at the end of the day. And I think a lot of what they've taught has kind of given me the tools to move forward and be an effective activist and make sure that, my voice is heard.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of my grandma is her style. She has a great sense of style. She always has these cool fur coats from when she was younger.
Renee Saki is a leader and a mentor and a visionary for women and girls.
Renee has for a long time been a voice of reason, but a voice of strength, a voice of compromise when necessary, and one who will stand up and say what's on her mind when she doesn't agree, but does it with a great deal of aplomb.
She's a really powerful matriarch of our family. She knows how to get everything done. She is loving and caring and would do anything for the people who she cares about, and no one gets in her way.
Renee Saki is a leader in every way possible.
Renee and I were connected through Women of Vision. And in Women of Vision, she mentored me, and I looked up to her as someone of character and commitment. And Moving Traditions is my place where I have been a mentor to girls through Moving Traditions Rosh Chodesh groups. So it feels very full circle.
Her Judaism is something that's really important to her. It's a really central tenet of her life, but so is her womanhood, and she knows what that means. She's taken her incredibly hardworking spirit and put it towards making the world a better place.
Here we have a woman who has great capability, who has depth of learning and has the sensitivity to apply herself to many different things, all with a very positive end result, because of her talent.
She lives what she believes in. So she both supports organizations that are empowering women and girls, but on her own, she's always inviting and mentoring women to follow her lead.
Like all good people who have the unique talent to convey messages, to listen to things, to mix and match, it's time for her to be recognized.
There's no one who deserves it more. You are so inspiring to me, and you really are the reason why I feel empowered to make my life about social justice and empowering the disempowered, especially women, and especially with a Jewish impetus. And that's so important to me, and I wouldn't be able to do it with the conviction that I do if it wasn't for your light and guidance.
Renee, thank you for being a mentor, a role model, and a leader for so many, including me.
It's my pleasure to introduce our honoree and my bubby, Renee Saki.
Good evening. I'm Renee Saki, and I am deeply honored to be receiving this special recognition from Moving Traditions, an organization I hold very dear to my heart. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how my background has informed my commitment to and my passion for Moving Traditions. As a loving mother and doting bubby, I see the positive impact Moving Traditions has made in the lives of my children and grandchildren. Growing up in a traditional household, my world centered on Judaism. Shabbat services, Hebrew school, keeping kosher, Jewish summer camp, pride in Israel as a newly independent Jewish state. The rituals and activities grounded me, but there wasn't a formal program I could participate in with other teens to talk about academic, emotional, and social stressors, and to learn how Jewish wisdom could help me understand my feelings, deal with them, and feel empowered to express them. Fast forward to my adulthood. As a young married woman with children, I began to see how society was changing, and I wanted to become part of that change. Women in the workplace as doctors, lawyers, business executives, having a seat at the table, whether corporate, government, or nonprofit, speaking up against inequality, gender, racial, or ethnically based. Because of these interests and my connection to Philadelphia's Jewish community, I became involved in Women of Vision, the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia's Women's Foundation, a group dedicated to advancing social change and social justice for Jewish women and girls. And that is how I first learned about Moving Traditions. The rest is history. Deborah Meyer, Moving Traditions' extraordinary CEO, applied to Women of Vision for a grant to fund Rosh Chodesh It's a Girl Thing. I didn't know anything about it at the time because my children were older than its key demographic, but what I learned really resonated with me. I loved the small groups that met monthly with a mentor trained by Moving Traditions professional staff. I loved the safe space the program afforded young girls to discuss issues that girls most care about: body image, friendships, family, boys, competition, stress. I loved exploring these issues through a gender lens, all the while imbuing Jewish wisdom and thought to the process. In fact, I loved the Rosh Chodesh program so much that I told my daughter-in-law, Rabbi Dina Klein, about it, believing that it would be a great program for my oldest granddaughter, Rachel, as well as an exciting program for Dina to mentor. Today, Rachel is a self-confident, vibrant, and engaged college student, and Dina is deeply involved in the Jewish community, sitting on the board of Moving Traditions as its vice chair and juggling several responsibilities. There is no doubt in my mind that the open and learned atmosphere encouraged in the Rosh Chodesh sessions is in part responsible for Rachel's feminism and activist spirit. The success of the Rosh Chodesh program led to the creation of parallel programs for teen boys, Shevet, and non-binary teens, Tselem, with similar impact and success. And that's not all. I would be remiss if I did not extol Moving Traditions' B'nai Mitzvah family education program and podcasts. My granddaughter Naomi will celebrate her bat mitzvah next year, God willing. A few weeks ago, I called to say hi, and my daughter Jordy said, I can't talk right now because we're attending a Zoom about Naomi's bat mitzvah. It's a program from our synagogue that was created by Moving Traditions. When I spoke to Naomi later, I asked her what it was about. She said, Bubby, I know becoming a bat mitzvah is a big deal, and I've been feeling a little nervous about it. I learned from the program that other kids feel the same way, and it helped me see what is important about this Jewish milestone. Jordy added that the program is helping her talk to Naomi about her bat mitzvah, using Jewish teachings to address issues facing families at this important rite of passage. I could go on and on about Moving Traditions' other programs too. Kol Kulenu, a fellowship program for teen feminists. Heart to Heart, an online program addressing the isolation teens feel because of the pandemic. Or Culture Shift, a module for camp professionals and staff to prevent sexual harassment and promote safety and respect at summer camps. Moving Traditions is an organization that is forward-thinking, innovative, nimble, and quick to pivot to adjust to new realities like COVID and virtual learning. It is transformative in the lives of Jewish teens. At its core is the dedicated staff, led by Deborah Meyer, and the vibrant board, chaired by Rabbi Darcy Crystal, as well as wonderful women leaders such as Sally Gottesman and Hope Sutton. I hope my passion for and commitment to Moving Traditions is infectious. By getting involved with Moving Traditions, you will embolden Jewish youth to connect to themselves, their peers, and their Jewish community, to challenge injustice wherever they find it, and to work together in the Jewish community to change the world for themselves and for their children and grandchildren. In closing, I want to thank Moving Traditions once again for this very special honor and commit to my continued passion for and support of Moving Traditions' work and its impact on the lives of Jewish youth. Thank you so much.
Mazel Tov, Renee, and it is just so inspiring to hear your words tonight. I'm Rabbi Daniel Brenner. I'm the Chief of Education for Moving Traditions, and I'm here with trained Rosh Chodesh group leader Jenny Asher. Hi, Jenny. And I met Jenny a number of years ago. I get to meet hundreds of wonderful Jewish educators around the country. I got to meet her, play music with her, and learn that she is not only a musician, but a composer and a songwriter. And I reached out to her before tonight, and I asked her to compose a piece, if she would, based on some of the themes that animate our work at Moving Traditions. So I wrote to Jenny and I asked her about the themes connect, challenge, and change. And I said, you can choose whatever you want. You could do one of them, all of them. And Jenny, what did you choose to play for us tonight?
So my brand of composition is improvisation, and I had to choose connect because it's all about connecting with other people in the moment. So we're going to go with connect.
Beautiful. So I want to say a few words of Torah about connect and thinking about what it means to connect from a Jewish perspective. There is a word that is often used in connection with the word connect, and that is kesher, which means to tie two things together. But when we think about Jewish education and the word connection, I think what we really mean is chevruta, which means the connection between study partners. And when we talk about that connection, it's not just a connection because we feel like they'll sharpen one another, but it's a connection because at the heart of the word chevruta is the word chaver, which means friendship. And there's a beautiful teaching from the Sforno 16th century Italian commentator, Tovim hashnayim min ha'echad. The two are better than one. Ki im yiplu ha'echad, because if one falls, yakim et chavero, the other one will lift up his friend. friend or lift up the friend, to give a gender neutral translation. And I think this is an incredibly powerful teaching for us, particularly in Moving Traditions, because adolescence is a time where there are many, many falls and many times where you need someone, a peer or a mentor, who can lift you up. And we love this teaching in thinking about what it means to truly connect. So now we'll hear some music with the theme of connection, and we'll hear some music. And while we listen to it, I'm going to ask you if you will drop a few words in the chat as you listen. You can wait till you finish hearing the entire piece and then put those words in, and we will all together share the emotions that come up from this piece. As the music moved through me, I felt energized. I felt a sense of shalom. I felt a sense of my heart opening. I want to take all of that with me and take everything that everyone has felt from tonight. Incredible, incredible range of emotions, incredibly inspiring evening tonight. And on behalf of Moving Traditions and our wonderful board members and everybody on the Moving Traditions staff, our entire team and our friends, I just want to say thank you with deep gratitude for joining us tonight and for supporting us in all the work that we do.